Big Talker 1580. Welcome to Real Talk with your host, Dr. Valencia Campbell, on the Big Talker 1580.
Hi, I am Dr. Valencia Campbell, and I'm your host. Welcome to Real Talk. Real Talk is a weekly radio show designed to address some of the most challenging issues confronting our community, including substance abuse and treatment, finding mentors, the real story about getting into law school or medical school, personal experiences with trying to get a criminal pardon, and so forth. Today's program focuses on the proposed White House Council on Boys to Men. My guest today is Sanders Shiver. Sanders is the program coordinator for the Prince George's County Public School System, Even Start Family Literacy, the Department of Educational Options Office of the Alternative Programs. Sanders is also the co-chair of the Prince George's County Early Childhood Interagency, and he's a member of the National Coalition for Parent Involvement in Education. He's a steering committee member for the Child Resource Center Judy Hoyer Family Learning, co-chair of Early Childhood Conference, and he attended Carson Newman College. He's also drafted fourth round for the Baltimore Colts from 1976 through 83, and played also with the Miami Dolphins from 1984 to 86. Welcome, Sanders, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, let's start by having you tell us a little bit about how you became interested in working with this commission that is proposing the White House Council on Boys to Men.
Well, part of it is because I'd done, working in the school system in early childhood, you get to see a lot of things. So we started to look at educating our boys, and particularly African-American boys, but that also meant we had to take every boy into account. And we looked at our structure on how we were educating our kids and the situations we were putting them in. We kind of reverted back to ourselves growing up. And I'd done a lot of informational stuff on educating our boys in terms of teachers, educating the teachers a little bit differently, recruiting more male teachers, and I became an advocate. And because of that advocacy, this with the other people on the commission throughout the country, we had a chance to talk about forming this commission, and I'm lucky to be a part of it because of my beliefs more than anything.
That is really fantastic. I really like the idea of you all bringing some of your experience from your own life into the work of this commission. So, who are some of the members of this commission?
Well, we have Dr. Warren Farrell, who actually ran for governor of California when Arnold Schwarzenegger did win. We have the familiar names, the guy that wrote the book Raising Cain, Michael Thompson, and we have Michael Gurian, who written over 20 books on boys and girls, actually. But we also had him here in Prince George's County. We did The Purpose of Boys, and we did some teacher training with Michael Gurian on Boys and Girls Learn Differently. And we have the national leader for the Boy Scouts of America, Willie Lowes. We have more than 35 different professionals and practitioners that are actually advocates for boys that are in this commission. And to name them all would be pointless, I think.
Well, I think the ones you've already identified really gives our listeners, a sense of the caliber of folks that are involved in this particular effort, as well as their seriousness in really trying to reach out and reach back and help the young boys today to become our future leaders. When you mentioned various names, you talked about some that were authors, some who are practitioners, and a host of others. what then would be some of the main areas of concern for the commission that you all identified?
Well, we have a lot of concerns because there is a crisis as we see it. But we chose education, we chose jobs, fatherlessness, physical health, and emotional health. And those are the 5 topics we chose because we kind of combined all of the problems that we saw into those different categories.
So how were they selected? How'd you narrow them down to just 5 as opposed to 10 areas or 15 areas?
It's probably about 15, 20 areas. But when you talk about education of boys, you can kind of lump a lot of things into that because you're talking about recruiting more male teachers, teacher training, the whole concept of understanding boys' behavior, being more literate about boys' behavior. And when you talk about jobs, you think about where we are now with the job. And you did mention how in corporate America, in the big scheme of things, there's a lot of males running things. But there's a lot of jobs going away for guys that are not doctors, that are not lawyers, the mainstream guy that's got to feed his family and things like that. So we want to kind of educate them and put them in a situation where they can actually have a job, keep them out of jail, things like that. So all of that is lumped into that one part. And fatherlessness is something that comes about because of it's several things. It's attitudes. It's not understanding how to be in a relationship. It can go on and on and on. And I mean, so we lump in a lot of things as it relates to, the behavior of a father and his children and the opportunities to be father. And then we talk about physical health. That's one of the things that most people, when they talk about males and health, we tend to be the ones not going to the doctors. We take things for granted. We figure we got to be the tough guys. Oh, it'll be okay. We'll work it out later on. So these are things we want to make sure when you talk about the number of areas that physical health covers. You're talking about going to the doctor, the diseases that are needs to be taken care of, early intervention, education to your own sons, to your own children about going to doctor.
And that's exactly right, because there's so many diseases and things that could be prevented with the proper care. And in fact, next week we're going to be talking with someone on nursing home living. So we're hoping, like as you mentioned, with the prevention, Miss Cheryl Mines will be here to go a long way in that regard.
Well, when you think about our children, as an older person, we're thinking now long-term care. What's going to happen when I'm 60? What's going to happen when I'm 55? For children, with all that information you've collected, we were able to have all these people with all this experience and said, these are areas we need to really have within this paper. This is what we need to attack in terms of getting information to the public that will educate our next generation, our children, their children, and that whole young group that's coming along. And go ahead.
And there's something else that you mentioned, and I'm glad you also brought that up about the idea of men being in positions of power when you look across, particularly in the government, because I know in my own research, in my book, Advice from the Top, dealing with looking at the women across the government and the SES and so forth, men were still, highly represented there, and women were at much lower rates, and minority women in particular were even lower. So when you talk about this issue of a new council dealing with men and boys, I'm glad that you brought up that you recognize that men do hold these positions, and you're going a little beyond the idea of their positions of power to try to look at children who may need more, that won't necessarily aspire to be the CEO, but and to point out that we can't forget those children either.
Well, you look at how we live, our population, and the areas we live in, poverty, things like that. those kids are limited when it really comes into the opportunities because it's so many people. And if I can't be the CEO and I have to be a janitor, I need to know that job's going to be there. With all of our technology, most of those jobs are being shipped overseas, and no matter how much education you got, you still can't get those jobs. So it's a major issue in terms of our jobs and just having our kids prepared. And I think education is a big part of that. And the reason we talk about education is because the people that are educating our children, if they're turned off by education early on, they'll never get to that part where they graduate from high school because they're going to drop out of school because they're disinterested or they've been disrespected. And we want to get through all of those layers where they have a good school experience, where they love learning, where they actually will graduate from high school with an opportunity to go on to college. So there's more males in prison than are in college. The percentage of males that used to be much higher going to college is now down. The percentage of women is up. And it's not to challenge either one. The challenge for us is to really be advocates for people that are working with our children and have the opportunity to work with men, to give them information that they can, it's sort of have maybe the trickle-down effect. They'll be able to take it back into the communities and start to have their own little groups and their own little sessions. And that's really where the mentoring part starts.
And that is really crucial because that's one of the things we're going to have a word from the sponsor, the Prince George's County Drug Policy Coalition right now. And that's one of the things the coalition has been very involved and interested in doing is to try to help our young people to stay interested in staying in school, to not drop out, not become involved in drugs, and to look for those who might be able to help them, whether, it's a form of mentoring, which is, kind of some of the issues we're talking about here today, finding folks that can help get them onto the path that they aspire to be on and be able to move ahead in their career dreams and goals. And for our listeners, if you want to know more about the Prince George's County Drug Policy Coalition, you can visit their website, www.pgcdpc.com. The coalition will be hosting a delegation from Uganda who will be staying at Howard University during their participation in this year's World Children's Festival. And this is a group of young boys age 8 to 14 who will be performing on the world stage on the National Mall. And we're just so excited that Dean Lee agreed to be part of this effort to house this large group for us, as well as under the leadership of Howard's president, President Rabeau. So we're really looking forward to that event this weekend, June 17th through the 19th.